Hey everybody, hang on one second. The perils of a life. All right, can you hear me now? All right, can you hear me now? I can hear me. I didn't have my earphones plugged in there or hooked up to Bluetooth, so I apologize. But anyway, everybody, welcome back to New York Giants Corner here at Toilets to Titles. Hope everyone's been having a great free agency so far. I know our beloved New York Giants have been, and I wanted to talk about that. I know it's like a week late on this, but I've just been very, very busy. But I did want to cover free agency for the Giants, for our beloved Giants, before we get into draft. Can you believe we're less than a month away from the draft? That's amazing. Less than one calendar month away from the draft. It starts on, let's see, draft night is round one is April 27th, so less than a calendar month away. And I wanted to get my thoughts on free agency out there, our accomplishments, our moves. Feel really good about it overall. I do have some concerns, I got to say, and I want to discuss everything. So, which I'm going to do in this episode. And before I get to the free agency details that I want to discuss, let me get the bells and whistles out of the way over here. Okay, if you can, hit that like and subscribe button. Give us that 5-star Apple review. Why? Because we deserve it. And honestly, it would help us out a lot too. Where you can find the show, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Facebook, Podbean, and Spotify. And if you go to our beautiful, wonderful website, toiletstotitles.com, it has all of our videos, all of our articles. We cover everything to do with football, fantasy, NFL, college football, draft content. It's out there having to do with football. We cover it. I do want to say, though, that we have partnered with CFB Nation. They do most of the college football content. And then once those players graduate, they are ours. But we do some college content as well over here at Toilets and Titles. But again, big announcement. About a month or two ago, we have partnered with the CFB Nation. Please check them out. Give them a follow as well. Great crew of characters over there. We've got some guys over here, team members of Toilets and Titles, who also are team members of the CFB Nation. So we collaborate really, really well. Been doing a lot of good stuff. We had a crew of guys, both of us, CFB Nation and Toilets to Titles. We had a crew of guys down at both Senior Bowl and over at the Combine. Very, very cool. So, but check out the website again, toiletstotitles.com. We're pumping out new player profiles for this draft class every single day. We've been doing it for like 2 or 3 months straight now, but tonight we're going to have like four more coming out as well. So I know Nino and Coach have been working really, really hard on those, as well as some of us others, including myself. I haven't done a write up in a little while, but I have knocked out about 25 of those babies myself. But we've got other people like Dennis and Jared. They've been shipping in too, but the vast majority of that work has been done by Coach and Nino. They got more coming out tonight. Again, draft content, player profiles coming out every day. Check it out. toiletstotitles.com. That is the website to be hooked on. And also, if you go to patreon.com/toiletstotitles, you can learn how you can further support our network. And I do want to give a hearty thank you to our current Patreon supporters. Thank you so much. We appreciate you appreciating us. And I see that I'm getting a lot of traffic on my street. I'm I'm in a corner over here. This is my office, my work office at home, and it's just like basically just stuck in a corner over here. I'm surrounded by windows. No matter how I move my monitor, there's going to be some sort of reflection off a window. So I keep saying I'm going to do it. I got to move myself downstairs in the basement, try to set up a studio down there. But the thing is, I feel like I'm going to be secluded from my family and my dog Melvin, and it makes me feel guilty. So I keep pushing that off, but I really got to do it. So I don't have to deal with these windows. I don't have to deal with these reflections. Also, Gilded. One last thing, one last bell and whistle to get out of the way. Gilded. That is our chat, our Toilets and Titles chat. Gilded is an app, and Gilded is our app of choice where we have our Toilets and Titles chat. And if you are a subscriber and you'd like to come into the chat at Gilded and talk football, whatever it is, fantasy football, NFL, college football. If you're unsure how to during fantasy season, if you're unsure, you know who to, who to set in your roster for that week, you could always come in, pose your question or questions, and you'll probably get like 10 responses. So please check out Gilded, and if you'd like to join our chat in Gilded, just feel free to reach out to us on Twitter, and we will take care of you. All right, everybody. So let's get into the Giants free agency moves. I'm going to start off with the departures first. And I see that I have a few chats. I'm gonna a few comments. I'm gonna get to those in a second. I do just want to get this kicked off over here. Key departures. I'm gonna do key departures, key retentions, key additions, and then I'm gonna cover the Giants' weapons so far, what we look like going into the 2023 season. Before the draft, it's looking a lot better than last year. I really like it a lot. It's looking a lot better than the end of last year. I gotta say. So I'm really looking forward to speaking with that. But I'm going to kick this off with key departures. And I do have my worries here. So some of the guys that we lost so far, and there's can be some other ones that we're going to lose, but really the three that I cared about are the three ones that we already lost. And one of them is safety Julian Love, who I think is going to be missed unless we get someone pretty high up in the draft next month. I'm really afraid. I'm really worried about that other safety position because Julian Love, his nickname was duct tape for a reason because you can pretty much put him anywhere and he's going to plug a hole. He was a reliable, very smart, very savvy player and skilled as well. He played safety very well, and he could play the slot very well, and he could also play on the outside corner. But his real strengths were playing safety as well as the slot. But he was mostly focused on the safety. And this is a really smart player. I'll tell you, last offseason, we lost Jabril Peppers. We let him walk. I was worried. I wasn't happy about that. I understood, but I wasn't happy about it because I like Peppers a lot. I was really, really looking forward to see him with Wink Martindale and Wink Martindale's defense. But unfortunately, we let him walk. I think he's with the Patriots. He actually re-signed with the Patriots, I believe. But I wasn't too worried about it because I trusted Julian Love. Julian Love hadn't been a starter before, but he'd always been a good backup. He'd always been a good fill-in for people that were injured. You never really lost a beat with Julian Love being out there. And when Xavier McKinney, one of our MVPs on the defense and a great young player of ours, when he's got the green dot on defense, so he's basically like the captain on the field for the defense. When he went down for like 6 weeks with that horrible hand injury in the middle of the year, or closer, more like the end of the year, Julian Love, as the other safety, had the green dot. And listen, we really didn't miss a beat. I mean, the second half of the season, we lost more games in the second half of the season than we lost in the first half of the season. I get it. That wasn't Julian Love's fault. There was a whole bunch of other things. But on the defensive side of the ball, of course, having Xavier McKinney back helps out a lot. He's a better safety than Julian Love. McKinney's going to be, hopefully he's going to be maintained, I should say retained, and going to be here for a long time and retires as a Giant. But when he went down, Julian Love didn't miss a beat. He was great. He was fantastic. Again, I trusted him. He didn't let me down at all. And I was really hoping we'd retain him, and didn't happen. Now I'm worried about the safety depth. I'm worried about the safety depth. Besides McKinney, we have a few other guys. We've got like three other guys. Nothing great, nothing proven. Um, we have our fifth round pick, I think, from last year, Dane Belton. Fourth round or fifth round, I forgot which one. I think it actually might have been fourth round. And I think both him and Daniel Bellinger were the fourth round picks. But Belton, Belton's okay. I think Belton's ceiling is not as high as Julian Love, and he was okay last year. He had a decent amount of starts, decent amount of snaps, and he is known as a ball hawk, but he's a very incomplete player. And maybe he will grow into this role on the defense, and maybe he'll take a step forward. It's not something I'm counting on, to be honest with you. And so I am worried about the depth of the safety position with the departure of Julian Love, and it kind of stinks because up until like 2 years ago, we didn't have any edge rushers, but we had really, really good. We had a good secondary. We had two good cornerbacks in Adoree Jackson and James Bradbury. We were really deep at safety. Jabril Peppers, Julian Love was a backup, and I forgot who our other safety was, but we were really deep at safety, and we were deep on the inside of the defensive line. We had Leonard Williams, we had Dexter Lawrence. We had B.J. Hill, who is now, who we traded for a crappy center for 1 year, who's now re-signed with the Bengals. Has been like, I don't know if he's been a Pro Bowler with the Bengals, but he's been a really good all around player, and he just, he signed an extension with the Bengals as well, deservedly so. B.J. Hill was a really good defensive tackle, and then we lost another really good defensive tackle, Dalvin Tomlinson, to the Vikings. We couldn't retain him as well, so but we had four players who were starting caliber, anywhere from like good quality starting caliber up to Pro Bowl with Leonard Williams. And now we're down to Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence. And I love those two players, but it just thinks that that depth is gone at both safety, at both the secondary and the interior of the defensive line. Now that we actually have legit pass rushers in Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari, so that does stink. That hurts. Um, Center. Okay, let's move on to Nick Gates and John Feliciano. I was okay with losing one of them, but not okay with losing both of them. And I am a Nick Gates fan. I love the guy. I thought he played well at center, pretty well, well enough at center starting like 2 years ago before he got injured. Went down with that horrible leg injury. Um, he almost lost his leg. The break was so bad, he almost lost his leg. He had to have like 7 surgeries to completely repair it. And he came back, played admirably last year. You know, I always felt like we could upgrade at center with Nick Gates, but with Nick Gates, I always felt like we had a decent floor there as well, where I felt like, okay, now we can focus on the guard positions. That Nick Gates would be fine for now until we were able to upgrade. And I never felt like John Feliciano was an upgrade from Gates. I felt he was actually no better or worse, actually. But not having either of them now, Nick Gates signed a 3-year deal, $5 million a year with Washington, and Feliciano is now a backup in the 49ers. Feliciano probably wasn't going to be starting this year, and I'm fine with that. I mean, I want to get a young center in the draft, but I did want to have an experienced backup there too. So I'm worried about what's going on in that position. And some recent comments by the front office have me a little worried too when they're saying that that they have a lot of faith or they really like Ben Bredesen a lot, who I like, but I like him at guard. But they're talking about Ben Bredesen at center, maybe Lemieux at center. I like Lemieux as guard depth, but he's never been proven to play at center. And then there was, I think Anderson is his name. I forgot his first name, but another basically a reserve lineman who they're talking about, trying out at center. But listen, front office, you better be drafting a center, somewhere like in the first 3 rounds. And I hate to reach, like I don't want to reach for a center or pick number 25 if there's a cornerback that's good or a wide receiver that's good. But man, it's getting to the point like if I got to like if John Michael Schmitz is there in the first round, maybe I got to take him. And I kind of at this point don't want to wait longer than the second round. I don't want to wait beyond the second round to take a center. Me myself, my favorite center behind. I've got a few. My two favorite options after John Michael Schmitz at center are actually Steve Avila out of TCU, and who played guard last year, but he played like 2 seasons before that at center, and he played very very well against Jalen Carter in the national championship game. TCU got blown out. That had nothing to do with Steve Avila though. Steve Avila acquitted himself very well against that Georgia defense, including a few snaps against Jalen Carter. Held it very well. So I like Steve Avila a lot. And I also like Joe Tippmann out of Wisconsin. So this dude's like a monster. And he's a freak. I think he's on that, top. I forgot who the writer is, but every year he has a list of like the top 25 freaks in college football coming into the draft. And Joe Tippmann was one of them. He is a big dude. Really, I think he's got the longest wingspan out of all the centers in the draft. And he comes from Wisconsin, which is one of my favorite programs for developing offensive linemen for the NFL, especially in the interior. I mean, Wisconsin is really good at producing running backs and really good at producing offensive linemen. So I like Wisconsin. I like Notre Dame. I like Michigan, and yes, Alabama as well, and Ohio State. But Wisconsin, Iowa's another really good school too. But Wisconsin, I love. When an offensive lineman's coming out of Wisconsin, my ears perk up just like when a wide receiver is coming out of USC. My ears perk up because these schools are really good at developing those particular positional groups. But I am worried, about the lack of depth. We don't have any proven starters at center anymore, so that does worry me. And these guys weren't great. I love Nick Gates, but even if he weren't going to be, I would love to have had him as a backup. Even if he weren't the starting center, one thing I love about Nick Gates the most is that, first of all, he plays with fire, he plays with energy. He doesn't back down to anyone. He's a tough dude, and you want that on the offensive line. You want that in the locker room. And quite frankly, the Giants need more of that type of attitude. But he's also a very versatile player. He's kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah, but you need that sometimes. Not everyone needs to be a starter. And Nick Gates, I think, could have been a really valuable at least backup, if not a starting center, at least a backup center and guard and right tackle as well. He's played all three positions before for the Giants, and you always wanted to upgrade. Wherever he was at, you always wanted to upgrade, but he always gave you a decent floor than many of the other players that we've had over the past 10 years. I know that's not setting the bar high, but it's the truth. And Gates, listen, $5 million a year, that's a lot for a backup, don't get me wrong, but when you're talking about a guy that can legitimately play three positions on the offensive line, that's center, right guard, and right tackle, he's done it before. I realize that's too much to pay, but it's just a shame that we lost him, and it really hurts our depth in the offensive line. Our offensive line is has not been good anyway, and to lose Gates, I think really hurts a lot. John Feliciano, um, you know, I don't want to. I'm going to sound like a hypocrite here, but I was in a Giants Twitter space the other day, and that was actually it was like a week and a half ago, and I think it was actually hosted by the Chosen One, big time Giants fan, and on that, I was in the space, I spoke, and I had said that, I wanted to move on from players like John Feliciano. I wanted to start young guys. I wanted to get young. And quite frankly, John Feliciano wasn't all that great anyway. He never has. He was okay for the Giants last year. He wasn't bad, but I wanted to get younger and better too, of course. But I wanted to get younger. I wanted to see these young guys, just grow together along with our young tackles like Andrew Thomas and Evan Neal, and I have a lot of good hopes for Joshua Zudu, who was drafted last year out of UNC, playing at left guard. I still haven't given up hope on Lemieux. I think he's got some good potential there. But here I was in the space saying, in the Twitter space saying that, I wanted to start a young guy, draft and start a young guy over Feliciano. However, I did that didn't it didn't mean that I wanted to totally get rid of Feliciano or and or Gates. I wanted to have at least one of them as a backup, just as an insurance plan. So that does worry me. So to me, I mean, there have been some other departures as well, but these are the three that I care about. Julian Love, he's a quality player. He's not a Pro Bowler, but he's a quality, solid player, versatile, smart. We're gonna miss him. I'm telling you right now, we're gonna miss this dude unless we replace him, like with a high pick in this upcoming draft, which I don't think is gonna happen. Unless we replace him with a high promising pick, we're gonna miss Julian Love. I think a lot more than people realize. I really, really do. And just Nick Gates and Feliciano, the experience there, we're gonna miss that too. So hopefully we do have to draft. Hopefully we do draft a center high in this upcoming draft in the first or second round. Definitely no later than the third round because we're going to need some talent there. And hopefully they can step in and do a job from day one because someone's going to have to. And there's not much. We don't have much cap space left to sign other guys unless we start reworking contracts like Leonard Williams and Adoree Jackson. But I don't know if the front office wants to do that. And quite frankly, I don't think I want to do that too much either, really, So I want to be able to move on from some of these guys in about a year or two. That includes Dory Jackson. That includes Leonard Williams. I love them both, but their contracts are huge and their cap hits are huge. So again, nothing against the players. I'm just looking at the future. So I'm trying to build for sustainability here. All right, so let's move on. We just covered key departures, and again, these are the three guys that worry me the most in terms of what we lost at these positions. Julian Love, that was a good player. We're going to miss him more than I think the vast majority of Giant fans realize. And when it comes to center, it's just experience, and the lack of experience now at center on the offensive line scares me. Okay, key retentions. I'm not going to spend too much on this. I already had an episode a few weeks ago. I think it was my last episode a few weeks ago. I covered the Daniel Jones contract and the tag of Saquon Barkley. I'm glad they're both back. I love Daniel Jones. I've always believed in this guy. I'm glad he's back. I thought he earned that second contract, and I don't care about the $40 million a year. You can really get out of the contract after two, maybe no later than 3 years. And even if for the sake of argument, say I wasn't as high on Daniel Jones as many or most other Giants fans. You know what? I think we barely started really scratching his surface here. I think don't worry about Daniel Jones taking a step back next year. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. He finally has continuity, here on the Giants for himself. He can grow. This offensive line, is not going to. I don't think it's not going to get worse. I do think it's only going to get better. Even though I am concerned about the center position, I do think it's only going to get better. The wide receivers, which the receiving room got better just in free agency alone. We'll see what we do in the draft, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But I feel good about that. Barkley is going to be back. He's back on the tag. I feel bad for him. I'd like to see Saquon get like a 3-year extension. I think he deserves it. No, not a Christian McCaffrey money. No, not a Christian McCaffrey money. But like $12.5 million a year, because I'd like to see him around. And I don't want him coming back on the tag playing pissed off, So I'd like to see him retained long term. I know the RB market cratered this year, and that's unfortunate for him. It's fortunate for us because it just makes things less expensive in terms of retaining him. But he is a team leader, a great character guy, a high caliber producer on the field, and I want to see him happy. I want to see him on the Giants for like 3 more years at least. So, but anyway, I love Daniel Jones. I'm glad he's back. I think he's only going to get better. I don't think Giants fans have anything to worry about unless you're looking for something to pick out. I don't think you have anything to worry about. I thought it was a great deal. I'm glad he's back. Barkley, I'm glad he's back. Darius Slayton, I'm very, very happy that he's back. Darius Slayton has gotten hammered by the Giant fans for way too long. Not all, not me and a handful of others, but most Giants fans got hammered like Evan Ingram did, I think, unfairly for the most part. Yeah, criticisms were deserved for both Slayton and Evan Ingram. But I also think that, especially with Darius Slayton, there was too much that was expected of this guy because we haven't had a legit wide receiver one since OBJ left. So we were looking at someone to be the wide receiver one. We signed Kenny Galladay. That didn't work out for whatever reason. I'm dying to know the details of exactly why that did not work out. What happened with Kenny Galladay? I still don't understand it to this day. But we signed Kenny Galladay to a big contract to be a wide receiver one. That crashed and burned as bad as you could get it. Kadarius Toney did not work out. There's another weird situation. He's gone, but he wasn't playing for the Giants. So whatever it was, whether it was injuries or attitude, I don't know what it was, but he wasn't playing for the Giants. He shipped off. He could have been potentially a wide receiver one. And if Kadarius Toney is fully healthy, for an entire season, that dude will be a legit like top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. I have no doubt about that guy. Kadarius Toney is an incredible talent. But you have and Sterling Shepard, who I always loved, is always injured. And we've got these guys not living up to contract, not living up to being drafted in the first round, and another guy who can't stay healthy. But who is around all the time is Darius Slayton. And Darius Slayton, he was taken in the fifth round, 2019, the same year as Daniel Jones. They've always had a good connection. Darius Slayton's really only problem has been issues, drop issues. And I shouldn't say only because that's huge. That's what you're paid to do. You're a wide receiver. But like I said, he's got some drops, but for the most part, this dude has performed for the Giants above and beyond being drafted in the fifth round. I'm glad they kept him over players like McCole Hardman and Jacoby Myers. Especially for the price they got him for. They got Darius, I think, for like $6 million a year. I think it was. While Myers and I think McCole Hardman got like $12 million a year each. Alan Lazard. I'd rather have Darius Slayton over Lazard. I think Lazard got something like $12 million a year. And Darius Slayton's contract, I think, is really one of those contracts where it's really like a 1-year contract. It's a 2-year contract, but it's really more of a 1-year contract. And but I like him. He's available. Okay, he's available. And our other wide receivers who we were always counting so much more on have never been available, or just didn't play up to expectations. Meanwhile, Darius Slayton, plays well above expectations, and then everyone you know, gets mad for a guy who's known for drops coming out of Auburn, coming out of college. He was known for drops. Everyone gets mad at him, but dude, he's supposed to be your wide receiver three, maybe wide receiver four, but let's say wide receiver three. I'll give him more credit than that. I think he could be a really good wide receiver three on a really good wide receiving core. The problem is that we haven't had a wide receiver one, and our wide receiver two is always injured. So, people are looking at Darius Slayton and they get upset when he drops, a few too many balls, and it does happen. It's a fair criticism. That is fair. But he's also had plenty of big catches, put up quite a few big games for us, and the dude's been available. This is the guy. This is the date you're going to the dance with. What can I say? Maybe not the prettiest one, maybe not the most beautiful one, but it's the date that's there for you. So, people need to chill out Darius Slayton. Chill out on Darius Slayton. Focus on building up, wide receiver one and wide receiver two. Don't worry about Darius Slayton. Okay, we also brought back defensive end Jihad Ward and running back Matt Breida. These weren't, I didn't really care too much about these moves, but I am glad to have them back. They're inexpensive. Matt Breida is a little too expensive for my taste, to be honest with you. I don't think he brings all that much to the Giants, but whatever. He actually stayed healthy for like the first time ever in his life last season, and probably because he wasn't used all that much, I guess, is probably it. But I got to say, I have to give him some credit. When he was on the field, he did help out. He was effective in our offense, and so I can't complain. But so Jihad Ward, was a decent fill-in last year, a decent spot starter. And he did a decent job. Pretty good against the run. Not great. Not really known for getting to the quarterback. Just a depth player, and that's pretty much it. But there's a lot worse than Jihad Ward out there. But the key three retentions are Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, and Darius Slayton. And people, take it easy on Darius Slayton. All right, let's go to the key additions over here. All right. And before I do that, let me get to the comments over here. Dennis, if you're still there, how are you, my friend? D now, otherwise known as Dennis, is a huge Detroit Lions fan, and I know he's super excited about the past season and this upcoming season. This has got to be, I'm assuming this is Coach, disguised as toilets to titles. And that's right. Nobody puts Joey in a corner. You got it. You got it. Oh, it's Justin. I'm sorry. It's Justin. That's right, Justin. Nobody does put Joey in a corner except for Joey. That's okay. If I put myself in a corner, it's okay. All right. So let's get to the key. The key additions, and we're going to start off with tight end Darren Waller. Uh, it was huge. I got to be honest about something. Mea culpa. When the trade first came down, when it was first announced. Hey, Derpy, what's going on, my friend? Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. So, this is, let me change my banner down here. Jeez, I got so much to do over here. Key additions. Okay. When the trade first came down for Darren Waller, before I knew the details at first, all right, mea culpa, at first, I wasn't in favor of the trade for Darren Waller. It wasn't the late third round pick and like I think we gave another pick up to like a sixth round pick next year or something like that. It wasn't that. All right. My concern was I knew that Waller had recently signed a long-term contract. And given his injury history over the past 2 years, I didn't want to be locked into a long-term contract with a guy who was making like 10, 11, 12 million dollars a year, where we were locked into it for like the next 3 years or something like that. Lo and behold, I find out that yes, it was like the strangest contract I'd ever heard of. It was like a 4-year extension or something like that. But we're really only on the you're really only on the hook for this year. And I think we reworked his contract to give ourselves more cap space, where maybe we kicked some of that back to next year, which means that he would definitely be on the roster next year. Uh, but I don't think it's a big deal. I was super excited when I heard that we were really only on the hook for his contract for this year. Um, After that, we can cut him with virtually no cap hit, something like $250,000 or something like that. So when I heard that, I was totally down with it. Again, I wasn't against Darren Waller. I was just worried that he had a long-term contract extension that we're going to be on the hook for when the guy's been super injured for the previous 2 years. When I found out the contract was something we can get out of, and he's only making like $10 million a year, $10.5 million a year. That's a steal. If this guy can stay healthy, even if he's just healthy for like say like 13 out of 17 games, regular season games, and he's putting up Waller numbers in this offense with Brian Dable and Mike Kafka, this is a friggin' home run. I mean, this is the definition. This is the definition of a low risk, high reward move. It really is. You only gave up, I think it was pick number 100 on this year's draft, and I think like a sixth round pick next year. So whatever. I don't really care about those at all. Once I learn that we can get out of the contract, if it is a bust, if he is injured again this year, once I learn that we can get out of his contract after this year, I was totally on board. Darren Waller, when this guy is healthy, is like one of the top three or at worst four offensive tight ends, receiving threats in the game. This is a player we needed big time, especially since we probably weren't going to get a wide receiver one as a free agent. Certainly not as a free agent, I should say, via trade, which we could still try to sign OBJ. I guess we could try to make the cap space for that, make that happen. But we really don't know if he's wide receiver one caliber anymore. I'll tell you one thing though, for OBJ, I have to admit, and I'm not a huge OBJ fan. I've never been. I'm a fan of his talent. I'm not a fan of the character. I've never have been. It's just not my type of player. Same thing with Jeremy Shockey back in the day. Loved the dude's talent. Appreciated his toughness, his effort, and his production, but he just wasn't my type of character person. But I would take OBJ for a year and pay him like $12 million a year, maybe $13 million a year. I'm saying it probably wouldn't have to be that much. Or probably wind up being like $8 or $9 million a year. I'm just spitballing over here, but I'd be willing to pay more money for him for 1 year, just to see how it would work out. As much, like I said, as much as I'm not a fan of OBJ the character, um, there is part of me that would kind of like to see him back in a Giants uniform, with Saquon Barkley, and give Daniel Jones a real potential wide receiver weapon out there, high caliber weapon out there. um, there's also DeAndre Hopkins as well. And listen, if the Giants could get him for like a third round and a fifth round pick or something like that, uh, make the cap space, rework his contract. You know what? I can't complain. I don't want to see us. I feel like, listen, we're not a wide receiver, even with Darren Waller. Even if we draft a wide receiver in the first round, say we get Zay Flowers, we don't know how he's going to produce. Say we do that and we get either OBJ or DeAndre Hopkins, those guys ball out. Say they ball out. We get one of those guys and they ball out. We're still not one of those wide receivers away from being a Super Bowl contender. We still have holes on the offensive line. We lack depth on the defensive line, even with some of our signings, which were good. We lack depth there. We need still more linebackers. The linebacker, who I'm going to get to next, who we signed, is good, but we need more. And listen, our secondary is getting thin. Dory Jackson I like a lot, but he's not exactly a ball hawk, but he's a good quality cornerback. He stayed healthy last year for the most part. He does have a history of injuries, though. Again, the safety position outside of McKinney is thin. I'm not crazy about it, and we don't really have a starting uh, outside cornerback opposite of Adoree Jackson anymore, unless we bring back Fabian Moreau, which I'm kind of hoping we do, because he may not be great, but he played pretty well in our system last year under Wink. He was fine. He wasn't horrible. He wasn't great, but he wasn't horrible. He wasn't James Bradbury, but he wasn't horrible either. I wouldn't mind seeing Fabian Moreau back. But anyway, my point being that even if we got DeAndre Hopkins and he balled out, we're not gonna level up to the next tier. Which the next tier is Philadelphia Eagles, Dallas Cowboys, the 49ers, the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Bills. Uh, we're not ready to level up. We've improved this free agency so far. I think we've made this team stronger, but I think we've gone up within our tier. We haven't leveled up in tiers, but I think we've gone up, within our tier. I think we've gotten better within our tier. And we're a tier two team, and I think we got a little ways to go before we actually level up to the next tier, to the tier one teams. I think we're getting there. I think we're getting there. But so I am reticent to bring on a big wide receiver contract right now. I would like to see us get a young wide receiver in one of the early rounds of this draft, maybe the first round, and maybe that one can turn out first or second round. Maybe that one could turn out to be a wide receiver one, pretty quickly. We'll see, but I do want to see us, manage our cap space smartly for right now, and then when we do level up to the next tier, then we can bring on, some more big contracts and start backloading contracts to squeeze on as many, better players as we can. But right now, I kind of want us to focus on retaining our own young talent. We still got to get Dexter Lawrence, an extension. Xavier McKinney's going to need an extension fairly soon, and Andrew Thomas, one of the top 3 or 4 left tackles in the game now. Young, he's ours. He is the big one that we really need to make sure that we keep. So, but Darren Waller, man, this is a great trade. Again, there's nothing. There is no downside. If he fails, like if he's just injured and he fails, then it happens. But it was only a third round pick and like a future sixth. So again, the definition of low risk, high reward. I love it. Linebacker Bobby Okereke, and people are always confused. Giants fans are confused how to pronounce the name of their new starting linebacker. And I think the best advice I've heard on remembering how to pronounce his last name is that pretend like you're going to say carrot cake. Okay, it's Okereke, kind of like carrot cake, Okereke. So linebacker Bobby Okereke, who they signed from, who left the Colts. He's with the Giants now. I'm glad we got this guy. Linebacker was a serious problem. Our run defense was absolutely horrible last year. It really, really hurt us. I don't think I'm glad we have Okereke. He had something like over 150 tackles last year. He is known as a pretty good pass defender. So we definitely needed that. I'm hoping he's good in the run game. I know he's got a reputation for being good in pass defense for a linebacker. I hope he plays the run game pretty well too. I'm assuming he does because he had over 150 tackles last year, which is an incredible amount. Um, but right now, he's really our only linebacker that we have that's starting caliber. To be honest with you, we don't have any other starting caliber linebackers. He's the only one. So I wouldn't be shocked if they go linebacker. Probably not in the first, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go linebacker in the second or the third. We need more depth there too. We really, really do. But this is a good signing. It was like $10 million a year. Great deal. I love it. So welcome aboard, Bobby Okereke. We needed you badly at linebacker, and I pray to God that you stay healthy. Wide receiver Paris Campbell. I love this signing. We got Paris Campbell for something like $3.5 million, $4 million a year. I think maybe with incentives for 1 year deal. And I'm surprised that the Colts let him leave. I know his career. He didn't have a history of injury in college, but ever since he was with the Colts, he was nothing but banged up and injured up until this previous season, and he wound up putting up like I think almost 700 yards. With you know bad quarterbacks and a bad offense at in Indianapolis. So when he was finally healthy, the dude put up like Darius Slayton numbers, and obviously those aren't like great numbers or anything. But Campbell has been in somewhat of a similar situation as Slayton. Slayton's been healthy, but Slayton was, had some of his own issues. Paris Campbell is finally healthy. He produced pretty well, and I'm glad he's with the Giants. I'll sound like a hypocrite because he's someone I would always bash when it came to fantasy football, but that's because the dude was never available. So, he'd make me grouchy because I'd look in the waiver wires and I'd need a wide receiver and I'd see Paris Campbell and I'd pick him up maybe for a week and then he'd burn me, so I'd dump him. And then the following week, of course, he'd always put up a pretty good game. But I'm glad he's aboard the Giants. Low risk, high reward signing. Again, like with with our coaching staff, and yes, I do believe in Daniel Jones, but even if you don't believe in Daniel Jones, with this coaching staff, the offense, Paris Campbell, if he stays healthy, is going to have a really good year. I'm not saying he's going to be. I don't think he'll ever be a wide receiver one. But he can have a really, really good year, and that's not far fetched at all. I wouldn't be surprised if like he were the starting slot. Because listen, Wandale Robinson, I don't know if he's going to be available this year at all, and if he is back, how well he's going to be able to produce. I think he's going to need time to recover. Even when he's on the field, it takes time to really get your playing speed back. Sterling Shepard, same thing. I don't even know if Sterling Shepard's going to make the team. When the season starts. To be honest with you. So Paris Campbell could wind up being he could wind up being the starting slot receiver, and I think he could wind up having a really, really, really good season. So you look at Darren Waller and Paris Campbell, and these are two guys, low risk, high reward. I love these. I love these additions. They're just great. And really, again, you're on the hook for 1 year for these guys if things don't pan out. Safety Bobby McCain. Okay, so listen, My fear with Julian Love being lost. Is somewhat mitigated by the signing of Bobby McCain. Bobby McCain is a pretty good player for Washington for the past few years, and he's been available too. Another player who's been healthy. That's a good thing. Then again, we also didn't have that issue with Julian Love. He was never really hurt either. But Bobby McCain's been known to be a healthy player, good player, solid player, and he's a bit of a ball hawk too, which we need because we never get interceptions ever. And so, welcome aboard, Bobby McCain. He is a proven dude. I do like him a lot. I would have preferred to have Julian Love, but McCain's a little cheaper, and you got to make do. But McCain's not a bad player. It is a welcome addition. Makes me feel a little better about losing Julian Love, but not completely. But Bobby McCain, solid pickup, good value signing. I really like it a lot. Doesn't break the bank. Okay, defensive tackle Raheem Nunez Roches, decent player. He's been on the Buccaneers for the past few years. He's been on the Buccaneers for a while, actually. And I didn't know much about him at all, before we signed him. Of course, I read up a lot on him since then, and good solid depth signing. We this is a guy who plays the run very very well. He's not a three down player, but obvious run plays. He's very good at that. He's very good at playing the run. We needed that. Uh, Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence played something like 95% of snaps last year, each of them, and that was with Leonard Williams playing like I think the entire second half of the season, maybe longer, with a few injuries, including a neck burner. So people wonder why Leonard Williams wasn't as effective last year. That's why. That's why. But Raheem Nunez Roches, otherwise known as Nacho, I believe is his nickname, provides solid depth. This was good depth, good contract, good price. I like it a lot. Wide receiver Jamison Crowder, another wide receiver that I've never been crazy about, but I'm happy to have him on my team because it wasn't a big contract. It's not a big deal. It's like a 1 year deal, low risk. I'm not going to say high reward because I don't think Jameson Crowder is like. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. I always thought Jameson Crowder was pumped up too much by fans. I think fan expectation, people would talk about him a little too much, like oh, Washington has Jamison Crowder, or the Jets just signed Jamison Crowder, like it was like a big deal. I never saw it as a big deal. I see him as a solid professional wide receiver. I do. I've always recognized him as that. I always just got turned off by other people seemingly expecting so much out of Jamison Crowder, but as a dude who's basically kind of like depth at this point, playing the interior, I'm glad to have him aboard. You're looking at, assuming again that Sterling Shepard and Wandale Robinson are not going to be ready at least until the middle of this upcoming season. You got Paris Campbell and Jamison Crowder playing the slot, and these two guys probably, especially Campbell, is probably not just going to play the slot only. The Giants coordinators, they like to move these wide receivers around, and they kind of have to anyway because pretty much the vast majority of our receiving weapons are smaller slot guys. But Paris Campbell and Jamison Crowder, Crowder is good depth. I'm glad that we do have him. This is a cool signing. I was really cool with it. And again, I never liked Crowder nearly as much as quite a few other people did, quite a few other fans did, but he is a quality, proven veteran who's savvy. I like him. He has value. We got him for 1 year deal, not a lot of money. Cool. This is really good depth. I like him a lot. Wide receiver Jeff Smith, really, you know, it, he'll make the team. He will make the team, but he's really going to be like wide receiver 7 when he makes the team. The real value he brings is that he's apparently an excellent gunner in special teams, and we did need to improve special teams, and big time, big time. So apparently he's an excellent special teams player, good gunner. I'm glad that we have him there. He's gonna, he'll make the team really, really for special teams, but he'll be like a wide receiver 7, and then cornerback from Detroit. Okay, I'm gonna slaughter this name, Amani Oruware. Oruware. Amani Oruware. Okay, let's just call him AO. Out of from Detroit. To my understanding, I didn't know anything about this guy at all. This is a depth signing. If this guy is starting opposite of Adoree Jackson this season, be scared. This guy is signed as a depth signing. We really need to get either another proven cornerback here back over here, but whether it's Fabian Moreau or someone else, or we need to draft cornerback really not really damn high in this draft. It really needs to happen first or second round. This is a deep cornerback draft. That's great. So we could probably get some really good, like a good one in the third round too. I wouldn't be surprised if we double dip at cornerback in this draft. But Amani, let's just call him AO, cornerback from Detroit. Depth signing. He does have some ball hawk in him, which is cool. But you know, this is a dude that came on the cheap for a reason. He's got plenty of warts, but again, I'd like to see how he works out in our defense. With Wink but he does play press man, I believe, and again, key thing is that he does have some ball hawk in him, which is cool. But uh, he better not be the starting, outside cornerback opposite of Adoree Jackson week 1. Then I won't be happy about that. I gotta say. All right, let's move on to. All right. Okay, guys, so this is what I wanted to show you here. This is our weapons. As of right now, this is our 2023 weapons. Obviously, we have a draft coming up. We still have a long ways to go in free agency. There are other players we could be adding. But as of right now, this is what it looks like. And compared to last year, I love it. I really do. I mean, last year, we didn't even have our wide receiving core really set until we picked up Hodgins um, from the Bills, from the practice squad. As soon as Hodgins came in, he helped out a lot because he was already familiar with Brian Gable's offense. As soon as Hodgins showed up, we could finally roll out the same 3 guys every single week as long as they were healthy. And they were healthy. They were healthy. Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton, and Richie James. None of these guys are wide receiver ones. And Isaiah Hodgins, I love him a lot. I'm glad he's back. I have a lot of, I have a lot of faith and hope in this guy that he could maybe legitimately like be a legit wide receiver too one day. I think it's possible. I also think it's more likely that he winds up being like Darius Slayton, like on a really good wide receiving core. Isaiah Hodgins will probably be more like a wide receiver 3 on a really good wide receiving core. But that's okay. You need players like that. You need players like that. I just don't want to see Giants fans put the same expectations on Hodgins like they had put on Slayton after Slayton's very successful rookie year. We had something like 8 touchdowns and 750 yards as a fifth round pick. As a fifth round pick. Um, I don't want to see Giants fans have those type of expectations for Hodgins. Let's hope that he grows into being a legit wide receiver too. And I do think his floor is actually wide receiver 3. I think he's a really smart, savvy player, young player with really good hands. He's not fast, but he is big, and he does know how to get open. And he uses his body and his hands very, very well. This dude catches, he's got very good hands. I'm really impressed with Isaiah Hodgins. But you look at Darren Waller, Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton, Slayton again, who's not known for getting injured, Paris Campbell, Daniel Bellinger, who I loved last year. Daniel Bellinger is really like my type of tight end. To me, a tight end should be. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad that we have Waller, but if you have a Waller, you also want to have another tight end who doesn't have to be as good as a receiving threat as Waller. Waller's unique. He's exceptional. He's an elite receiving threat from the tight end. But you also want a tight end like Daniel Bellinger, who's a legit tight end. That is someone who really does it all. He blocks well in the passing game, blocks really well in the running game, and he is a legit threat as a receiver. He's not a burner, but he's a savvy player who goes out and finds the open spots in the defense and provides a reliable outlet for a safety valve for his quarterback, and he's got really good hands. Daniel Bellinger is a really good, promising, young, tough tight end. Fourth round pick out of San Diego State last year was our starting tight end as a rookie, and he shined. That is my type of tight end. But don't get me wrong, I love that we have the combination of Bellinger and Waller. I'm really excited to see how Brian Dable and Mike Kafka, use both of them. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's good. They're 2 coaches, that come from programs that like to use the tight ends a lot, especially Kafka over in Kansas City. And of course Dable over in Buffalo had Knox, but Kafka, comes from Kansas City and Andy Reid's always used tight ends very, very well. And so that's going to be exciting. But look at the depth at our receiving depth right now. You got Waller, Hodgins, Slayton, Campbell, Bellinger, and Crowder. And again, we're obviously missing a wide receiver one. There's not even anyone close to being a wide receiver one here. But maybe we can get him in the draft. Maybe we can get him in free, via trade, like a DeAndre Hopkins or signing OBJ. Maybe we can do both. Maybe we can draft a wide receiver in the first round and trade for DeAndre Hopkins or sign a OBJ. Maybe we do both, and it looks even that much better. But for right now, this is solid. This is solid. It really is solid. Key thing is these guys staying healthy. And then you look at Wandale Robinson, who should be back sometime in the middle of this season. But again, when he comes back, listen, guys come back from an ACL. They usually they can come back, be on the field like a year after their injury, but they're not necessarily going to be in playing shape until the following season. Especially with Wandale Robinson having his injury late, very late in the season. It was like October, I think, late October. I think he tore his ACL. Then you got Sterling Shepard. Same thing. I think he tore his ACL earlier, I believe, than Wandale. But if Sterling even makes the team, and another wide receiver, Colin Johnson, I'm still intrigued by Colin Johnson. He was very, he's been very impressive in the two previous seasons for the Giants. It's a shame he absolutely would have been a starting wide receiver for us last year, day one. Unfortunately, he tore his ACL during preseason, and that's a shame. But big body. I really hope this guy can come back. I'm really eager to see what he can bring. I don't know if Colin Johnson's even going to make the team, obviously at this point. But man, I'd love to see this guy get a shot on the team, at least to start off as a depth player. And Colin Johnson, I think's got the talent to be the best wide receiver on this list. Not Darren Waller, but I mean purely wide receiver. He'll never. I don't think he'll ever be as good of a wide receiving threat as Darren Waller is. But I think for our current wide receivers, the list over here, I think Colin Johnson, believe it or not, actually has the ability, if he can stay healthy, to actually be the best wide receiver down the road on this list. We are going to improve the wide receiving core. It's ongoing. It's going to get better. But right now, just look at it. It looks better than it has in a long time. It would have been great if Kadarius Toney worked out. Didn't work out. Would have been great if Kenny Galladay worked out. Didn't work out. But it looks a lot better. And then you got Barkley, Breida, Brightwell, same cast as last year. I wouldn't be shocked if we draft a running back somewhere in the mid rounds to replace Brightwell or Breida. Me myself, I got to say, I'd like to see Gary Brightwell actually get more opportunities this upcoming season if he's still on the team. The reason being that in the limited opportunities he's played for the Giants, I've always liked the way Brightwell has played. He's a one-cut guy who hits the hole hard and decisively, and is not that easy to bring down. He's a hard runner. I like Gary Brightwell. I'm not trying to build him up to be something better than. Well, I guess I do think he's better than most people. I actually noticed Gary Brightwell. Most people probably don't even realize he's on the team. He was a sixth round pick a few years ago. I didn't agree with the pick at the time. I think they could have gotten him as an undrafted free agent, but he is a very good special teams player. However, again, in the limited snaps he's played, I like the way that Gary Brightwell has played running back. One cut guy, hits the hole decisively, is not that easy to bring down. He runs pretty hard. I like him. I like Gary Brightwell, but I wouldn't be surprised if we take a running back in the third or fourth or fifth round this year. Um, you know, to I have a feeling the front office and the coaches aren't too high on Brightwell, but I like him. I like him. But I wouldn't be surprised if we draft another running back in the mid rounds this year. It's not going to be first, second, or I don't think it'll be the third round, but maybe the fourth or the fifth round. I wouldn't be surprised if we take a running back. So, but anyway, guys, that is it. So I just wanted to go over, give my opinion on how we did in free agency. I think the front office did a wonderful job this year. We're still somewhat, you know, um, hamstrung by cap space, especially since we gave Daniel Jones the big extension. And again, I was totally in favor of that. The $40 million means nothing to me. I think he's worth it. I think he's only going to get better. And remember something about Daniel Jones too. If you don't believe in him, if you like Brian Dable, and if you like Mike Cap, if you like Brian Dable, Brian Dable believes in Daniel Jones. If Brian Dable did not believe in Daniel Jones, I mean, if he really did not believe in Daniel Jones, they would not have done this extension. If Brian Dable was like hesitant or just lukewarm in Daniel Jones, this extension never would have happened. This extension with Daniel Jones only happened, I believe, because Brian Dable was very high on the future of Daniel Jones, working with him, Brian Dable, and Mike Kafka, and this offense, and just continuing to learn the offense. Daniel Jones finally has stability around him. Finally has stability around him, and I think Brian Dable, like I said, I'll just reiterate, Daniel Jones would not be around if Brian Dable did not strongly believe in Daniel Jones. Jones would not have gotten that extension otherwise. So, but I love this offseason. It's been really good free agency so far. I think Joe Shane, front office, has done a really good job, improving the roster without busting the budget. They've done a really good job of that. So I'm really impressed. I'm really excited to see how we do in the draft. Man, we got to address that. We have to address that center position. We need to get a cornerback, and as badly as I want to say, let's get a young wide receiver in the first round. We've got some other key positions to fill on the offensive line and still on defense, especially at cornerback. That I'm okay right now waiting for like the third round, maybe the fourth round, but really the third round for wide receiver and foregoing probably really gunning for a wide receiver one in the draft this year. Um, if we can get a really good center and a really good cornerback, I'd be pretty cool. That would make me very happy. So, but I think it's been a successful free agency. I like what the front office has done, and I think we kept like the guys that were most important to keeping. I think we kept, and as much as I'm going to miss Julian Love, I think we kept the more important pieces: Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, um, and um, and Darius Slayton, just to name a few. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much a wrap here. And if you can, just a reminder, the Twitter handles for me and my compadres here at Toilets and Titles. There's like 15 of us. If you can give us a follow, I'd greatly appreciate it. And again, these are actually the Twitter handles for me and my friends here at Toilets and Titles and the CFB Nation. And I do have another comment up here. This one, Derpy. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I was trying to get through the show. Yeah, Derpy Entertainment is one of the best supporters of the show and Toilets and Titles. Big time Steelers fan. And he says, you made some real moves, my friend. Congratulations. I appreciate it, Derpy. We really did. And you know what? Same thing with the Steelers, man. Same thing with the Steelers. Good off season so far for the Steelers. I'm sure they're going to hit it out of the park in the draft. They always do. The Steelers front office knows what they're doing. It's one of those front offices, just like the Ravens, that you can always count on them to restock, replenish their team, improve the team through the draft. The Steelers really don't make any stupid mistakes. So Derpy is looking forward to his Steelers draft. And guys, just to let you know, I'm going to be signing off right now. Just to give you a heads up, that I will be starting some mock drafts soon. I'm going to do some mock drafts on my own for the Giants, but I'm also going to reach out to some guests to come on and do some mock drafts with me, and also and also more to like hear their opinion on who they'd like to see the Giants take. As we I want to hear their opinion on as we do a mock draft, first round with the players available, who would they take? Second round, the players available, who would they take? Yeah, I'd like to do that. So I'm going to have some guests on over the next few weeks to do that with me, but I'm also going to have some of my own mock drafts and put them out there. I'll probably just record those and put them out. But I am going to start doing a lot more draft content. I'm going to start doing probably more than one video a week now. And I want to get some mock drafts out there, and I do want to get some guests on. So to do some mocks with me. Anyway, everyone, I'm out of here. And I kept it under an hour, just barely. Unbelievable. I was going to try to keep it to 45 minutes, but anyway, and friendly reminder, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, hit that bell, give us that 5-star Apple review. 5-star Apple review. Why? Because we deserve it. Anyway, guys, I'm out of here. I will see you next week. Go New York Giants.